an LAPD cop has punched a man who was on a gurney, handcuffed to a gurney. Let's just go to the video first.
Bitch! Don't do that again. Any officer. And here's spit mask. If you don't go, let me know. I can pour it up. Grab a spit mask.
I don't give a damn what he did. I don't give a damn if it was a carjacking or whatever the narrative currently is. The man was handcuffed. I don't care that he called the cop the B word. He has a constitutional right to be a jerk. He was not in a position to harm or injure that police officer. What that cop did was retaliation, and that is against the law. That was a physical assault on this young man who was handcuffed on a gurney. Now, I'm going to play this video again because I want you to notice something, okay? I want you to notice that the paramedics were not shocked. I want you to notice that the other officers were not appalled by this activity. I also want you to notice two other things. That there's one cop who has a smirk on his face while this is happening, like he wants to laugh at the situation. And then you have another officer who did in fact intervene. He was wearing a mask, he came up, he literally touched his partner there and he walked him away from that scene. That's your duty, to intervene in real time, okay? Now, here's what should have happened. The damn cop should have been arrested. Now, that's what I'm waiting for. That's the day I'm waiting to report. When something like that happens and the guy who walks up, the individual who intervenes, also says, put your hands behind your back. That's what I want to see, all right? Here's the video again and watch for those dynamics.
Bitch! Don't do that again. Any officer. And here's spit mask. If you don't go, let me know. I can pour it up. Grab a spit mask.
All right, here we go. Here's some background. The incident happened Saturday after carjacking that ended in the city of San Fernando with the arrest of two suspects, according to an LAPD news release. The community member caught the incident on a video. This was a community member's video, which showed the officer striking one of the suspects who was in handcuffs and strapped to a gurney. Several officers were standing around the ambulance, as you saw, as the officer punched the suspect. At least one approached the officer to pull him back. The suspect was rolled into the ambulance with a spit bag over his head. It's unclear what injuries the suspect was being treated for or what prompted the officer to lunge toward him. The officer was upset, he was mad. It's not justified whatsoever. The LAPD said it learned about the video on Sunday and immediately started investigating. The unnamed officer, and we'll get his name at some point, the unnamed officer is suspended until the investigation concludes, the police department said. We got Chief Moore. Chief Moore said in a news release, so let's put up a picture of Chief Moore. The images in the video are deeply disturbing. And while I must wait for the investigation to be completed, the department will act swiftly in any instance of excessive or unnecessary force. You know, it's really interesting to me that an entire agency who was built upon the notion that you must call a thing, okay? In order to arrest people, you have to call a thing. All of a sudden, when it comes to their own, they can't call a thing anymore. They have to wait on stuff, okay? Adrienne, what are your thoughts here?
Well, just like you, I would like to see some assault charges filed because that officer had no reason whatsoever for doing what he did. That individual was completely and totally unable to defend themselves. And the thing with the LAPD is that they have a use of force department that is specialized for investigating these matters. So why we need to have all of these delays in time while this officer is suspended with pay, it just really speaks to the fact that our system is being exploited. Over the last 10 years, Los Angeles has paid out $330 million in settlements for police misconduct, including excessive force. That's $33 million a year.
Wow.
This is just, it's unnecessary. Individuals who cannot control their emotions, their behavior, and not run up on someone and punch them when they are unable to defend themselves should not be in a position to protect and serve.
You see, it's expensive to have bad cops on the roster. That's just a reality. It costs a lot of money in order to continue to employ these individuals.
Yep.
So you don't have a moral argument for them, you don't have a professional argument for them, and you don't have an economic argument for them. Why are they so well protected? Why are they so hard to get rid of, Adrienne?
Well, I think because of their initial origin, it's this whole thought that we have to maintain this us versus them narrative, this fearing other groups, this, certain groups are dangerous or there is a danger to you. And when we continue to push those narratives, we continue to create justifications for keeping law enforcement around, even though just a small percentage of their work is actually preventing crime. The LAPD's budget is 1.8 billion. It went up from last year. And the fact is we could be using that money toward education, toward actual social services to invest in our community. But unfortunately, we're investing in keeping a lot of people employed, and what they're doing is not necessarily helping our society advance.
That's right. If your city, if your county, if your state is bragging about hiring more officers, they are telling you that they are ineffective at addressing the issues of crime in that local community. If you want to brag about something, brag about the fact you don't need as many officers this year because crime is down so significantly in your community. When was the last time you heard a politician brag about that? And let me just keep it all the way 100, okay? Because these paramedics are not off the hook in my book, okay? Not one of them flinched when this happened. They are the first responders. They are the first responders. I get it. We already have talked about the cops here, okay? We know what their duty should be. And we know that what should have happened to the officer who committed assault. But for paramedics, for emergency responders, and I'm not saying that they are supposed to go toe to toe with the police, but at least have a reaction to a human being under your care being assaulted physically, already obviously injured. That's why they're in the gurney in the first place. It's not your job to determine if they deserve to be assaulted or not. It's not your job to determine it, even if they deserve to go to jail or not. Once that person is under your care, once that human being is under your authority as a healthcare worker, you have a reaction, damn it, if somebody assaults them like that under your care. None of these paramedics had a reaction. 90% of these cops had no reaction. One cop had a smirk on his face and the other one actually did intervene. Am I wrong here?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. The fact is that we do need every player in the system who is maintaining the systems of oppression to actually speak up, to stand up, to do something. And we often see where we have individuals who are in these positions and witness these things. We often see testilying, or we see the whole, just look the other way. No, there should be accountability across the board, but we have to institute that as a culture, as a society. And unfortunately, we're still in positions where we are giving individuals in law enforcement or other positions of power, we're giving them a pass so they continue to oppress individuals in society, and they're generally individuals from marginalized groups.
Yeah, and there you go, individuals generally from marginalized groups. The reason why this is a story, the reason why this cop has been suspended, the reason why there is an active investigation is because a bystander, somebody else, decided to record through their cell phone this incident. And I'm not sure if they thought something like this would happen, but it did. And that's why I encourage everyone, and everyone who knows me personally, if you're riding with me and I see a police officer pull over somebody, I stop the car and I start recording. I don't intervene with the investigation if they're trying to figure out who the person is. I don't get involved in that, but I start recording because you never know. And the smartphone has become the unsung hero in so many of these cases across the United States of America.
And that's the thing, it's the right thing to do, because I teach diversity, oppression systems, helping people understand racism, sexism, and whatnot. And that is also an observation I make in terms of how you can use your privilege and your allyship to help marginalized groups and individuals. And there are a number of people who will use their privilege by pulling over to the side and pulling out their iPhone to communicate essentially to the officer, even just implicitly, that you're being watched, that this could go viral and you could find yourself actually facing consequences, even if it's just a suspension with pay. But you cannot continue to get away with abusing people or violating their civil rights and no one knowing, you being able to sweep it under the carpet and claim it never happened. So now using your iPhone as an ally, that goes a long way.
That's right, and it's not always about catching something on camera, because the fact that your camera is present may have prevented something horrible from happening in the first place. And it keeps a monitor on the individuals who now will say, you know what, I have to modulate my behavior because somebody may be recording me, okay? That's a reality of the world we live in today. Naturally, we're looking at this case with the LAPD, but the truth is it's a microcosm, but it speaks to the macrocosm of what's happening with law enforcement. Here's what I do appreciate, Adrienne. I do appreciate the fact that some of these officers are actually being held accountable. There's a case in Atlanta right now, it was recorded too, where a black male sergeant kicked a black female in the head while she was handcuffed, okay? Kicked her in the head. He's not facing any charges. Hell, he barely got fired. The officer who refused to intervene, she's able to keep her job, even though there is a duty to intervene clause on the books in the city of Atlanta. So you have a very similar scenario. Person handcuffed, officer assaults the individual who's on the ground and handcuffed, kicks her in the head. There's video evidence. Absolutely no criminal charges are forthcoming. Why the difference?
Well, I can tell you, we need accountability across the board, because the reality is that when we see individuals are attacked and they are people of color, and we understand how white supremacy works in the United States, we know that anybody can perpetuate it, can push it forward. And so we have to address these things. We have to acknowledge them, and we have to look at the institutions and the systems that we continue to advance to try our best at least to weed it out. But if we don't make the change that we need to, if we don't confront it and acknowledge what it is, nothing will change, and there will be no accountability, and people will continue to get hurt.